Hello, it's Bishop Mark. Today is Luke chapter 19, verses 11 to 27, which is an awful lot of verses, but it's one long, actually very complicated story. And I think that we'll do what we can to give it the context of the whole story. So we have a lot to do, so let's begin. While they were listening to him speak, he proceeded to tell a parable because he was near Jerusalem, and they thought that the kingdom of God would appear there immediately. Okay, we all know he's heading to Jerusalem. We all know what's going to happen there because we know our Bible, and that he's going to die. Jesus told them at least 3 times that that's what's going to happen. But do you remember the last time he told that story about the passion? And they just weren't listening. So, they know that this is the critical moment, that he's about to enter into Jerusalem, but they're not really listening to what he's telling them about his death and how he'll have to suffer. But they are anticipating the kingdom of God will happen immediately. So, confusion on their part, determination on Jesus' part. So he tells them a parable, trying to explain to them. So he said, a nobleman went off to a distant country to obtain the kingship for himself and then to return. Okay, when we read that sentence, we're just hearing the first sentence of a parable. So this rich nobleman went off to the king so that he could be crowned a king of this local territory, and he left people in charge. Okay, it's just a parable. But what the people of Jesus' day would be thinking about is a specific person who falls into the same kind of category. Do you remember when Herod the Great died and they divided the kingdom? One of those people it was divided to was Archelaus. And what did Archelaus do? He didn't enter the kingdom. He went instead to the Caesar. He went to Rome in order to be crowned the king. He wanted more than just being one of 4. He wanted to be crowned the king. And so he went to Jerusalem. Now we don't know that except for history, but the people, they would think, oh, this sounds like Archelaus, who went to Rome because he wanted to be more than just a territorial ruler. He wanted to be a king. Okay, see how that's Jesus using an awful lot here. Okay, so the nobleman's about to head off, and he called 10 of his servants and gave them 10 gold coins and told them, engage in trade with these until I return. So, like other parables in the Bible, this nobleman goes off, but he needs to take care of the territory. So he chooses 10 people, he gives them money, and says, invest and take care of my money and my kingdom while I go off to be crowned king. Okay? Does that make sense? His fellow citizens, however, despised him and sent a delegation after him to announce, we do not want this man to be our king. That's what happened to Archelaus. Okay, so the nobleman went off to the ruler to be crowned bigger, right? Archelaus went off to Rome to be crowned king. But the Jews disliked Archelaus a lot, especially because of a terrible incident where lots of Jewish people were killed. So they in history, real life history, they went and they appealed to Caesar, don't make this man the king. And here in Jesus' parable, they do the same thing. They proceed the guy and say to the ruler in the story, don't make his man a king. So there's two things going on here. We have a parable where Jesus is explaining about the kingdom, and his parable sounds a lot like Archelaus' story. Okay. But when he returned, after obtaining the kingship, he had the servants called to whom he had given the money to learn what they had gained by trading. So just like Archelaus, this nobleman comes back anyway. Those people who hated him, who preceded him, were not successful. And this guy returns. So what happened to the rulers that he left in charge in order to invest his money and to take care of his kingdom? The first came forward and said, "Sir, your gold coin has earned 10 additional ones." He replied, "Well done, good servant. You have been faithful in these very small matters. Take charge of 10 cities." So it was a test. And this guy passed the test. He did well. He was very busy. He did a lot of good things. And now Jesus made him charge of 10 cities within, the nobleman made him charge of 10 cities within that kingdom. Because the nobleman thought, okay, I can trust this guy. Now what's this got to do with you and me? Well, in the Bible, money, Jesus doesn't care about money, but he cares about the gifts that he gives us, things greater than money, our talents and our authority, and he wants us to use it well. If we use it well, like the guy that used his money well, remember it's a parable, so it's an analogy. If we use it well, Jesus will give us more responsibility, right? That's the first one. Second one. Then the second came and reported, "Your gold coins has earned 5 more. And to this servant he said, you take charge of 5 cities. So he did all right. And Jesus gave him more because he tried hard, or the nobleman gave him more. Then the other servant came and said, Sir, here is your gold coin. I kept it stored away in the handkerchief. But I was afraid of you because you are a demanding person. You take up what you did not lay down, and you harvest what you did not plant. He said to him, okay. So the third guy did nothing with his talent. Just kept it for himself. Kept it in a handkerchief, like a tissue. And gave it back to him. Jesus, or the nobleman, gave him responsibility, and he did not even try. Jesus gives us gifts and responsibility, and this is the case through a parable where sometimes some people don't use their gifts at all. They don't even try. This upsets the nobleman in the story. And Jesus is saying this is upsetting to God as well. We don't use our talents. We don't use our gifts. He said to him, with your own words I shall condemn you, you wicked servant. You knew I was demanding person, taking up what I did not lay down and harvesting what I did not plant. Why did you not put my money in a bank? Then on my return, I would have collected it with interest. Okay, so Jesus, through this nobleman, who expected more from this servant, is harsh on him. He's questioning him. And as Jesus is harsh on us, the man knows that the master, the nobleman, expects an awful lot. He says so himself. Well, Jesus is saying, I expect an awful lot from you. The gifts I gave you. Who's he speaking to? He's speaking to his followers, his disciples, his apostles, as he enters Jerusalem, where he is going to be a king. He's going to be crowned a king. But the people will despise him. And despite the fact that there's a bunch of people despising Jesus, he wants the apostles to continue to use their gifts and talents that he gave him and not just do nothing, not give up. He's trying hard in this parable to get them ready for what is about to happen with all these people against him, that they must continue on with their gifts and talents. And to those standing by, he said, "Take the gold coin from him and give it to the servant who has 10." But they said to him, "Sir, he has 10 gold coins." "I tell you, to everyone who has, more will be given. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away." You cannot imagine what God has planned with your gifts and your talents in this world. We're an essential part of building his kingdom, preparing the kingdom of God for God. We need to take a risk. Every one of us has a gift. Every one of us has a purpose. Take a risk. And if you take that risk, the reward will be even greater than you expect. If we don't take that risk, well, we've wasted these gifts and talents. Okay, let's finish. "Now, as for those enemies of mine who did not want me as their king, bring them here and slay them before me." So in the parable, those enemies who went before Jesus, before the nobleman, are in big trouble. In real life, those men that went before Archelaus to Caesar, they were in big trouble. Those who despise Jesus in this world and ignore their gifts, ignore their talents, that's big trouble with God. That's even worse. Okay, I did my best to bring all these things together. We have Archelaus, we have the nobleman, and we have Jesus and what he's trying to say. It's a lot. I gave you a good introduction. I think, read it again if you're confused, with these 3 things in mind. Peace to you.